don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the videos here, please know that every single piece of content you watch is a true labor of love. Seriously, I pour my heart and soul into this channel. You see the final product, but you might not see the hours of research, the late nights spent editing, and the constant effort to learn new skills just to bring you the best possible videos. I strive hard to make sure the content is always high quality, insightful, and entertaining for you. It's a demanding process, but it's completely worth it to share this journey with you. If you appreciate that effort and want to help the channel grow, the single best thing you can do is hit that subscribe button. Subscribing is completely free, but it makes a massive difference to me. It tells me that the hard work is paying off and motivates me to push even further, create better videos, and keep this channel alive. So, if you want to be the first to catch the next video, if you want to support the grind, and if you want to be an active part of this community, please click the subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And give the video a like. Thanks so much for watching and for all your incredible support. I truly couldn't do this without you.
Here they are, the three, Magi, as Wavell so sickly nicknames them. Pithik Lawrence, Cripps, Alexander. They roll into Delhi in March 1946, not as deliverers, but as accountants come to tally the damage before closing shop. They call it a mission for the peaceful transfer of power. I call it a desperate, final attempt by a failed empire to control the terms of its own humiliating retreat. Peaceful transfer? The only reason they are here is because peace is no longer an option for us. The Quit India movement showed them the fire in the streets. But what truly broke them? The Royal Indian Navy mutiny. The moment the very instruments of their control, our own soldiers and sailors, turned their guns on the crown. That is the only language they understand. It wasn't Gandhi's prayers that forced their hand. It was the threat of a total, violent collapse, a repeat of the 57 rebellion, backed by the ghosts of Subhash Chandra Bose's Azad Hind Fauj. They talk about wanting to preserve Indian unity. What a colossal lie. The British unified India out of administrative necessity, not love. And they have spent the last 40 years carving it up with their communal electorates. Now, they are here to salvage unity by entertaining Jinnah, the man who vetoed half of the government at Shimla. If they truly desired a united India, they would ignore the separatist and deal only with those who believe in a single secular nation. But no, they give Jinnah a podium, making the demand for Pakistan an official item on the agenda. It's a calculated strategy. By giving him a voice, they ensure that even if they leave, the poison of division remains, guaranteeing a chaotic, weekend neighbor for decades to come. And this talk of Magi, the viceroy using Christian etymology to describe his colleagues. It's subtle, but it reveals the core philosophy. Their entire imperial project, their civilizing mission, their moral superiority, their legal framework, it's all rooted in the Old Testament, not in secular governance. They couldn't help but see themselves as bearers of light to the heathens. Even their exit is framed with a kind of pious arrogance. Let's be clear, there is no moral victory here for Britain. If they were truly ending imperialism, they would have freed all their colonies simultaneously. But they held on to others for years after this. They are not leaving India out of virtue. They are leaving because the cost of holding us down, with a rebellious military, a bankrupt treasury after the World War, and a boiling nation, became too high. This whole cabinet mission, this talk of a constituent assembly, is just a theatrical cover for a forced and inevitable exit. They want a peaceful exit for themselves, a clean slate, so they can pretend they walked away honorably. Well, we see the strings, and we see the stage. We will take their plan, we will take our independence, but we will never, ever forget the real reasons they departed. The sheer, overwhelming force of the Indian people, driven by the revolutionary youth, backed by the threat of mutiny. No one gave us freedom, we seized it, and we'll seize it whole. They came for an exit, not a blessing. That's the truth we need to hammer into every mind today. We read the history of the cabinet mission, March 1946. They list their objectives like noble deeds: transfer power, frame a constitution, form an assembly, set up an interim government. But strip away the diplomatic language, and what do you see? A panicked empire trying to avoid an embarrassing, chaotic collapse. They were dispatched because independence had reached a boiling point. Because of the Royal Indian Navy mutiny, the moment their own military turned against them, their hand was forced. The myth of preserving unity. Their supposed core goal was to preserve Indian unity because they doubted Pakistan's viability. This wasn't concern for our nation's soul. It was imperial pragmatism. The British wanted to leave behind one large, stable entity, easier for trade, easier for global politics. Their pride in unifying the subcontinent was a cheap boast. Their actual policies were designed to fragment it. The mission's real tragedy is not its failure, but its complicity in the future failure of unity. They came after the Shimla Conference failure, where communal divisions were already exposed. They knew the depth of the rift. Yet, their constitutional framework, the grouping scheme, ended up validating the very forces of separation. They created the mechanism for division while pretending to champion unity. It was the ultimate act of political hypocrisy. Our current mandate. Today, we are the ones dealing with the fallout. We are the inheritors of an independence that came with a compromise built into its very foundations. The Quit India movement forced them out, but the cabinet mission allowed them to dictate the terms of our future instability. Our nationalism today must be the antidote to that historical compromise. We must understand that the threat to our unity didn't vanish in 1947. It became an internal, systemic challenge. We are still fighting the political mindsets that prioritize sectarian identity over national cohesion. Mindsets fostered and validated by missions like this one. We demand accountability for the past, not from the British, who are long gone, but from ourselves. We must ensure that our constitution, our assembly, and our government are dedicated, first and foremost, to the uncompromising, civilizational unity of India. We are here to finish the job, to secure the future that the cabinet mission tried to mortgage for its own convenience. No more negotiation with the idea of division. We are one nation, born of struggle, and defined by an identity that transcends the petty lines drawn by a departing empire. Indian. Look me in the eye when I say this. We are done with the fairy tale of the benevolent British exit. We are the generation that sees through the sepia-toned lies. The history books call it a transfer of power, a granting of independence. I call it a forced retreat from a bankrupt, terrified empire. They didn't leave India out of goodwill. They left because their hand was absolutely forced. The moment the Royal Indian Navy mutiny flared up, the British knew their time was over. Their own soldiers, their own sailors, the very instruments of their control, had turned. They were exhausted by World War II, financially ruined, and staring down the barrel of a second, total revolution led by the spirit of the ENA and Subhash Bose. If they had the money, if they had the spine to crush us, they would be here still. Don't talk to me about moral paramountcy when they held on to colonies until 1984. Their exit was an act of self-preservation, not political virtue. And what was their final act? The cabinet mission. A three-man team sent to ensure an orderly exit, which really meant ensuring a permanently fractured India. The mission's fatal error was legitimizing Jinnah. They sat with the Muslim League, entertaining the idea of division, despite the overwhelming nationalist demand for a united nation. It was a cynical move that guaranteed the realization of Pakistan. If you want to leave an enemy strategically weak, you don't fight them, you divide them. That's what the British did, and the sheer, unadulterated imperial hypocrisy of it all. Wavell called those three men the Magi, a direct, Christian religious reference. They preached secularism while their entire imperial project was underpinned by a philosophy of Christian superiority. They cloaked their ruthless political maneuvers, their divide-and-rule tactics, in elevated, pseudo-moral language, selling themselves as civilizers when they were nothing but plunderers. We, the nationalist youth of today, understand this legacy. Our fight isn't just with the ghosts of the past, it's with the consequences they left behind. We are still fighting the politics of communal division engineered by that mission. We are still fighting the colonial mindset that values foreign validation over indigenous pride. Our mandate is clear. We will not allow any force, internal or external, to compromise the unity of our nation. We will correct the errors of that flawed transfer. We are here to secure the India that should have been born, whole, sovereign, and absolutely uncompromising in its civilizational strength. The time for soft history is over. The time for hard truth and firm nation building is now. They always wheel out the quote, don't they? Clement Attlee. We cannot allow a minority to place their veto on the advance of a majority. On the surface, it sounds magnificent. A grand declaration by the British Prime Minister, right before the cabinet mission arrived in March 1946. It was a direct, public slap on the wrist for Jinnah and the Muslim League. It affirmed our absolute right to independence and declared the Commonwealth a free association. But we, the present-day nationalist youth, See the cynicism beneath the statesmanship. Attlee wasn't being noble, he was being strategic. He was dispatching a mission for a swift, peaceful transfer of power because his government was broke and scared. The Arayan Mutiny had exposed their military weakness. His statement wasn't a gift to India, it was a political maneuver designed to achieve one thing: shift the onus of communal deadlock onto Indian leaders. We can't let the minority veto the majority, he said. And then, he sent his cabinet mission over. And what did they do? They immediately started negotiating with the veto holder. They gave Jinnah the platform. They entertained the grouping scheme that gave Muslim-majority provinces the power to form their own blocs, effectively giving the separatist ideology the constitutional mechanism to fracture India. The moment Attlee said, "No veto," our Congress leadership should have stood up and said, "Thank you, that's all we need. We'll proceed with the Constitution Assembly for those who believe in a united India." But they didn't. They went back to the negotiating table, desperately trying to save a unity that the British had spent a century destroying. They allowed the seeds of partition to be sown, even when the colonial masters themselves had publicly condemned the veto power. The result is our present. We got independence, yes, but we also inherited the trauma of partition and a persistent, corrosive politics of identity that constantly challenges our cohesion. Our mandate today is to learn from that moment of weakness. Attlee gave the green light for a unified India, but our leaders failed to fully seize it by isolating the forces of division. We must now embody that uncompromising spirit. We are the majority who believe in a strong, indivisible India, and we will tolerate no veto, not from external adversaries, and certainly not from internal forces who seek to exploit old fault lines. The time for compromise with the idea of separation is over. The advancement of the Indian nation will no longer be held hostage by the politics of division. We read about 1946, about the cabinet mission arriving in Delhi. And what strikes me isn't the confusion, it's the horrifying clarity. Everyone talks about the political complexity, but in reality, there were only three agendas, three clear lines drawn in the sand. First, you had Jinnah, a mind set on absolute division. His goal was an Islamic state, no compromises, no ambiguity. A singular, destructive vision. Second, the Attlee Christian lobby. Their agenda was a peaceful exit and leaving behind strong minority safeguards. They weren't fighting for India's unity. They were fighting for their own strategic interests and, yes, ensuring the future proliferation of certain religious blocs. They cared about their own clean hands and their geopolitical legacy, not the civilizational future of India. And third, the only true nationalist force was Sardar Patel. His agenda was brutally simple: absolute unity, demanding that Jinnah be muted at all costs. Patel saw the cancer. He knew that compromise with separatism wasn't inclusion. It was eventual national suicide. But the moment was lost. The vision of Patel was sidelined by idealism and a misguided hope for consensus. The cabinet mission, by failing to decisively isolate Jinnah and back a unified India, committed the unforgivable sin. It legitimized the idea that religious identity politics could veto the will of the nation. The result is the legacy of disunity we inherit today. The separatist rhetoric didn't die with partition. It just changed its costume. The ideological core, the idea that people of India cannot live together under a singular, unified national identity, that toxic thought persists. It proves that the Jinnahs and Aurangzebs never died, they multiplied. They multiplied into the political forces that today use identity as a weapon, that tear at our social fabric, and that constantly challenge the integrity of our borders and our culture. They didn't need a new homeland. They just needed to establish an ideological base within our existing one. This is why our nationalism today must be uncompromising. We cannot afford the soft-focus idealism of the past. We must embrace the hard, unflinching realism of Sardar Patel. We must understand that true secularism means the state stands absolutely neutral, and those who try to inject religious identity into the political sphere to demand special status or division must be muted. We are here to finish the work of securing that unity. We will not allow the seeds of that 1946 compromise to bloom into the destruction of our nation. The era of appeasing separatism is over. The era of absolute, unified Indian nationalism has begun. They talk about the three, Maghi, arriving in Delhi in March 46. But look at what they actually did in those first few days. They didn't convene with priests or philosophers. They convened with provincial governors, the administrative eyes of the empire. Why? To assess the fault lines. They weren't looking for unity. They were scouting the best places to drop the bomb of division. Their focus immediately zeroed in on two regions, Assam and the NWFP. Think about Assam, my friends. Group C, a Hindu-majority province forcibly lumped in with Muslim-majority Bengal. This wasn't constitutional drafting. This was political engineering designed to silence the indigenous majority, to subject them to a Bengal-centric political will, and to unleash the anxiety of demographic change. The leaders saw it instantly. They resisted fiercely. Knowing this, grouping meant the slow death of their autonomy. It took months for Gandhi to finally speak the truth, reject Group C. The people themselves had to fight the blueprint for their supposed freedom. Then look at the NWFP. Group B, the paradox that threatened Jinnah's entire thesis. A Muslim-majority province, yet governed by a Congress ministry under Dr. Khan Sahib. The mission saw this as a problem to be solved, not a testament to composite nationalism to be celebrated. They weren't asking, how do we strengthen this unique unity? They were asking, will this region align with the League's vision, or does it need to be maneuvered into it? This entire initial phase wasn't consultation. It was cartography of crisis. They were charting where the limbs of the nation could be cleanly severed. And the result? Even today, the fears sown in Assam, fears of political subordination and demographic pressure, are still alive in the northeast. The ideological battle fought in the NWFP continues to play out on our western borders. The British left, but the structural flaws they identified and exploited are still active. Our nationalism today demands that we look at those fault lines with clear eyes. We must recognize that the fight for a unified India is won by protecting the political and cultural integrity of every region, especially those targeted in 1946. We cannot allow the historical anxieties of Group C and Group B to ever define our future. We must stand with the spirit of those Assamese leaders who said, no, we reject the division, and we affirm the indivisible unity of our ancient land. Indian. I am tired of the sanitized history. I am tired of the polite phrases. Let's talk about the cabinet mission's Group C. Let's talk about Assam. Look at the audacity of that plan. Placing a Hindu-majority province like Assam into a group with Muslim-majority Bengal, forcing them to draft a common constitution. This wasn't a mistake. It was an act of engineered dismemberment. The goal was clear: to decimate Hindu political power in the east, to subject a democratic majority to the will of a separatist ideology, and to subvert the very idea of self-rule. It was a calculated move to ensure that even a united India was a crippled India. This rigid grouping scheme was the ultimate act of imperial favoritism. The British knew it ignored the fervent pleas for unity. It confirmed their decision to side with the Muslim League to ensure they left India strategically weakened, consumed by internal communal conflict. They preferred a legacy of chaos over a legacy of strength. And what about the response? The reaction of our top leaders is the most painful part of this history. Where was the immediate, fiery defense of Assam? It took months for Gandhi to finally issue his weak warning that Assam would lose its soul. Lose its soul. Why the hesitation? Why the slow, moralistic reaction when a strategic sledgehammer was needed? That delay, that soft resistance, plants a seed of agonizing doubt. It makes you wonder if our leaders were truly aware of the strategic malice of the British. It makes you ask if they were so focused on the grand stage of Delhi that they became indifferent to the fundamental interests of the indigenous population being sacrificed in the provinces. This inaction only feeds the suspicion that the entire framework was underpinned by a chilling anti-Hindu bias, using the transfer of power as a chance to impose lasting division rather than foster stability. We, the present-day youth, refuse to inherit this compromise. We see the lasting impact of that Group C mentality in the political and demographic anxieties that still haunt our northeast. Our nationalism is a declaration. We will not allow any political framework, past or present, to diminish the voice or the autonomy of our indigenous majorities. We reject this engineered subversion. We stand firm where the British tried to break us. The era of sacrificing our civilizational soul for political expediency is over. We will secure the integrity of every inch of India. 1st April, 1946. That's the day the cabinet mission interviewed Dr. Khan Sahib, the premier of the NWFP. I look at that meeting, and I see the entire tragedy of partition encapsulated in one room. Here was the NWFP paradox. A Muslim-majority province, yet governed by a Congress ministry. This was the living, breathing proof that the Muslim League's claim to be the sole voice of all Muslims in India was a lie. It was a massive, ideological challenge to Jinnah's two-nation theory. Khan Sahib, the brother of the frontier Gandhi, spoke of the need for tolerance and breadth of vision. He admitted Indians were not tolerant of each other's point of view. He saw the divide. He saw the need for a truly composite nationalism. He even acknowledged Jinnah but stated they operated in two different ideological spheres. And that is the crux of the issue that haunts us today. The ideological spheres. Khan Sahib's sphere was the vision of a unified Indian nationality, where faith is private and politics is shared. A true secular democracy. Jinnah's sphere was one of religious segregation, where political rights were tied to communal identity. The cabinet mission saw this tension, not as an opportunity to secure a unified India by backing the NWFP's Congress autonomy, but as a dilemma that threatened their neat Group B plan. They were looking for structural solutions that favored division, not ideological victories for unity. They ignored the powerful testimony of the frontier provinces' choice. And what happened? The secular ideal was crushed. The NWFP was lost to partition. Khan Sahib, the man who preached unity, eventually became the chief minister of West Pakistan, confirming the suspicion that the communal sphere ultimately proved too powerful, too compelling, for even the nationalist Muslims to resist. We, the present-day nationalist youth, must learn from this moment. We must recognize that the battle for India's future is fundamentally an ideological one. We must reject the very premise of those two different ideological spheres existing within the same nation. India is one ideological sphere, a civilizational, unified, composite nation where the state acknowledges no religious majority or minority in its political structure. We honor the struggle of Khan Sahib, but we reject the eventual compromise. Our mission is to ensure that the vision of the frontier Gandhi is finally realized, not by compromise, but by the absolute, uncompromising dominance of the unified Indian national spirit. We will tolerate no separate political spheres within our sovereign state.
Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the videos here, please know that every single piece of content you watch is a true labor of love. Seriously, I pour my heart and soul into this channel. You see the final product, but you might not see the hours of research, the late nights spent editing, and the constant effort to learn new skills just to bring you the best possible videos. I strive hard to make sure the content is always high quality, insightful, and entertaining for you. It's a demanding process, but it's completely worth it to share this journey with you. If you appreciate that effort and want to help the channel grow, the single best thing you can do is hit that subscribe button. Subscribing is completely free, but it makes a massive difference to me. It tells me that the hard work is paying off and motivates me to push even further, create better videos, and keep this channel alive. So, if you want to be the first to catch the next video, if you want to support the grind, and if you want to be an active part of this community, please click the subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And give the video a like. Thanks so much for watching and for all your incredible support. I truly couldn't do this without you.